Welcome to Following the Leftovers, the officially unofficial podcast for The Leftovers on HBO. I'm Jim.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're talking about Season 3, Episode 5, titled It's a Matt World. In reference to that old movie, It's a Mad World.
Yes. Seems like it.
Yeah, some zany antics happen along the way, much like the movie.
Have you seen the classic movie?
I have, yeah.
Okay. Because it's like a scavenger hunt to try to find this place where this guy buried a treasure, and people are trying to do all kinds of improbable transportation to get across the country and find it. And certainly was a lot of that flavor in this episode.
Yeah, very desperate travel here.
What did you think of it?
I think it's really good, but mostly the end. I don't know how much I enjoyed all the lead up to the inevitable, transformation of Matt, but I think the ends justify the means here.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a big, dense, biblical episode of The Leftovers, which is kind of a hallmark for a Matt-centric episode.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's also kind of interesting how they've bookended, like the first Matt's introductory episode was this big, Jobian tale. And the end of this is very similar to how the book of Job resolves. Well, I mean, God didn't get killed by a lion, but when Job finally gets God on the line to talk to him, like, God doesn't show up and's like, oh man, sorry, celestial clerical error. He takes Job to task for kind of being too uppity in the defense of the Lord's name, and he just goes on this long rant to Job about how he is like awesome in that biblical sense of the word, and like, look, I made this thing called Leviathan. Can you make it? Fuck no, you can't even hurt it or kill it or disturb it. Look at this other thing, Behemoth. Made that fucker too. You can't understand or conceive of the power required, and I am greater than that, and just just blows Job away, then also cures him and is on his way, and restores his family and his flocks and all that other stuff. And I felt like there's a lot of that reaction to Matt talking to this version of God. Like, this version of God doesn't care about him being a little boy and suffering, doesn't care that he's, and he doesn't need to justify his actions to a guy like Matt. There doesn't have to be a reason. And if there is a reason, it's too awesome for you to understand. I thought that was really great to the extent that it's an intentional parallel to what is going on here. I also, I feel like, because I just about an hour ago, I read this interview that Matt Zoller-Seist did with Damon Lindelof, because Damon mentioned to him that he wrote this story with him in mind. And they did this big, long thing about how Matt lost his wife 10 years ago, and he went through this big cycle of grief, and how that he really identified with the Matt character, and how that kind of, Matt, the character, or Matt, the actual person, he wrote a eulogy for his wife after 10 years, and Damon read that, and it inspired this episode, and they do a lot of interesting. I thought that it was really interesting in that it's a kind of by the end of the interview, it took on the tone of Job as Matt interrogating God, or Damon as God, like the God of the universe, and are you just making this up? Do you have a plan? And referring to the leftovers, and also kind of referring to his last work in Lost. Also, I'm in a weird headspace, because then from there I read the 10-year anniversary of his wife's death column, which has kind of fucked me up. So, hazards of being a podcaster, I guess.
I suppose so.
And I'm working my way through this bottle of the Macallan 12. So, great episode, though. I thought it was.
Yeah, I'm still a little shaky on the beginnings of it, but I think it came around in the end.
The other thing is, I feel like the last 3 episodes of this has got to be this downhill race, and
it has to, yeah.
They had to get something that puts a bow on Matt's experience, and I feel like at the end of this episode, I'm ready for him to do anything. It seems like he's made peace with his fate and whatever's going to happen, and that was something that was important for them to do. as part of this setting the stage for the rest of whatever's going to happen. Like, Matt's been too important of a character to just be a guest star in the final season of The Leftovers.
Yeah, sure. I mean, he is, like Lori says in this episode, essentially caused all of this, you know? I mean, in Lori's mind, and we don't know how true that is, you know? Kevin maybe has a destiny.
Sure.
Who knows? But in Lori's mind, certainly Matt has been the instigator of this whole scenario.
Yeah.
From the very beginning. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you have to focus on Matt. He's a huge part of the story, and I think this episode, where it leaves me with Matt, is very satisfying.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also, you can think of how infuriating it must be to a professional therapist who, you know, with rare exception, like especially this season, has very carefully chosen her words and how she helps Kevin, to have Matt essentially take this guy's delusions and feed into them. It must be incredibly a pisser. I mean, this is the ultimate pisser to have this person not only try to undo your work and someone that you presumably care about, but to be kind of such a smug Matt kind of asshole.
Yeah.
I mean, this episode reminds us that he's the guy that went around in season 1 publishing dirt on people that disappeared just so people knew that this wasn't the rapture.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't part of it, and I'm the holiest person on this goddamn earth. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, Matt can in some ways take responsibility for the stuff that Meg's been doing as well, right? I mean, maybe last season doesn't happen if Matt doesn't interfere with her life in the way that he does. So, Matt's been a thorn in the side of the Leftover story for a while, and I feel like he's come around to a place where I can at least... I mean, I've always kind of understood what he's thinking, but maybe sympathize with him a little bit more. You know, he's a person who has wanted control over his destiny his entire life, but he's been looking in the wrong place for it, right? He's been appealing to some higher power and trying to interpret the wishes of that higher power and then act on that. Whereas if he had just said, things are going to happen and they're going to unfold the way that the universe wants them to unfold, but I'm going to do what I can to make my life good in the meantime.
Right.
Maybe he would have had a better time with things, you know?
True enough.
And it seems like he's come around to that place at the end of this episode.
Yeah, and
he's
also,
let go.
The other thing I appreciated about this episode is it cements this theme of jealousy that's been running through the season, and something that was touched on in this Matt Zoller Seist interview, that, you know, Matt is outraged at what this guy who's proclaiming himself as Yahweh is doing. And at the end, he's especially pissed that he's usurped essentially the story of Christ for his own, you know, quote unquote benefit. All the while, this is literally the pot calling the kettle black. Like, everything that Matt is accusing this David character of doing, Matt is doing on at least as grand a scale. But he can't see that, or maybe he does. I mean, that's the thing at the end. Like, if he got off that boat and that lion hadn't have killed God, I wonder if Matt would have been okay. But that curveball at the end with him turning to the camera and saying, "This is the guy I was telling you about." Like, I'm not sure if he's going to hold on to his kind of like emotional and spiritual balance that he gained by the end of the episode, or if this is just going to reboot him and he's going to go into crazy Kevin Messiah mode. I'm guessing since it's The Leftover, it's the latter.
Could be. I don't know. Let's talk about that in a second. I wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, Matt, and you mentioned this a little bit, how Lori is trying to help Kevin and Matt is interfering with that in a very direct way, feeding that delusion. Yeah. And that has to be especially maddening to Lori when... Let's assume for a second that Matt is a little more level-headed, and he has let go at the end of this episode. Now he's willing to follow whatever comes for him. Lori couldn't muster the correct words to make that happen with Matt, right? Like, she's been trying. She's been telling Matt, "Look, this is all in your head. Like, you got some crazy destiny going on. This bullshit. You're jealous. Like, all of these things." And David Burton, in some bizarre twist of, like, just the most ridiculous twist of fate, has somehow gotten through to Matt. Yeah. It really let him get through to himself. Let him just come to realize what he's been doing. But Laurie was unable to do that. It's got to be frustrating to Laurie if Matt's like all good all of a sudden. Oh,
Right.
how'd that come about, Matt? Well, this David Burton guy, the guy I was telling you about, yeah.
I beat God with an axe handle, tied him to a wheelchair, and then struggled with him. Which also, oh shit, I'm just putting this we talked a lot about Abrahamic religious tradition and the fact that he gave birth to a son who gave birth to a son who then later gave birth to the nation of Israel. That man was Jacob, and he literally his name Israel literally means struggles with God, because God sent out an angel, and the story goes that Jacob literally wrestled him to the ground and wouldn't let him go until he offered him his blessing, which he finally did because he's a stubborn bastard. And
That's a weak ass angel. I don't want that angel's blessing. That's too weak of an angel.
Good point. If you just, all we got to do is get a blessing is wrestle with somebody for,
Right.
all night long until the break of dawn.
If I can wrestle an
any
angel,
given R&B guy can do that.
it's true. The Kenneth Babyface Edmonds needs to come over and bless me.
Because he can go till the break of dawn too.
For sure.
Any of the Color Me Bad or Boys to Men, they can all go till the break of dawn. I forget where I was going with that. Oh, Matt, he's literally struggling with God in this episode.
Yeah, he is. And he was, I want to say, very nearly touched by God, but he was physically punched by God at one point. Mm-hmm. Vicious haymaker to the guts. That was truly a shocking punch.
Yep. He was felled by God.
Yeah.
There's also other biblical parallel. There's, of course, the story of Daniel in the lion's den. Mm-hmm. I guess this would be the opposite, David in the lion parking lot. And also that the lion is often been a symbol for like Christ's authority, and like, he's the lion that came of Judah, and that was a symbol of David and his dynasty. And I once memorably met a guy out in field service when I was knocking on doors who claimed that he was the Lion of Judah. Had his big ass gold ring and spoke to me in tongues. It was an experience. He lived it. If you want to know, the actual Messiah lives in Monrovia, in Indiana. So after all this false Messiah stuff with Kevin has dealt with and David, the real Lion will come out of Monrovia. Surely an Axis Mundi. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like this show seems like it's tailor made for me at times.
Yeah.
Do we want to like formally start discussing the episode? We just kind of, has been our
want
this last few weeks. We just kind of jump into it.
Yeah.
What the hell? Did you do any research about this French submarine and the bizarre show opening that was essentially a whispered French prayer? Did you see the translation in that?
I have the translation. Yeah, here in my notes.
Do we want to go for a word for word, because I felt like the gist is,
well, the first word is I. How do we interpret that? Maybe not word for word. Let's go chunk by chunk here.
So what would you say is the high? What's the high points here? What is this? And this purports to be the words of the guy who we see. I guess he's the first officer of the French submarine.
Yeah,
I don't know how else he would hold the nuclear key. He's the officer of the watch.
I saw a screenshot that said P. Lion on his sleeve.
Yep.
So maybe he's a private. I don't know.
I thought that maybe that was his first.
He already has a key, so.
But also,
I seriously doubt he's just a private, right?
Oh yeah, no, and Paul, that's not a naval rank anyway.
Oh, okay, makes sense.
Yeah. So I think that maybe it's like a Peter or something, or.
That's his
but
first
Lion,
name.
Lion, does that have anything to do with Frasier?
I mean, thematically, certainly.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, what direct literal context to put it in.
I thought it's one of the things where it's teetering on the edge of too cute.
Yeah, but it's meant to not even notice,
True.
Like, if it weren't for the internet, like, picking apart every single frame,
right,
I didn't notice it.
Right.
It took me going to Reddit.
See, I thought it was a Russian, and the lion. I actually did notice it when I first watched it, but because I was looking to see I was looking for Cyrillic language, and then when I noticed it was not it was English, but it wasn't English.
Yeah, it's French.
And then I finally figured out. I think even the story that's immediately on the news says it was a French submarine, the French government this.
Yeah,
that,
Matt says it later on the phone.
Yeah, so I saw the line, but I didn't process it until I saw that same thing on Reddit. Like, oh yeah, shit, his name was literally Lion.
Yeah, so I don't like this prayer over the intro thing. Like it just doesn't that intro with the prayer just doesn't. They're not connected in my mind at all.
How
like
are they
I said
not
last
for-
episode.
Well, wait a second.
Like I said last episode, this stock standard intro just doesn't connect with the stuff they're putting over it, in my opinion.
But I feel like you are being facetious if you say that literally the words of this thing doesn't connect to the action that we open with.
That's
because-
not what I said. I said
Oh.
the intro.
Okay, that's fine. That's
Okay.
fine. I
Yeah.
want to move past us litigate because I cut
Yeah,
all
yeah.
feedback because I just like I feel like the pros and cons have been noted and it's time to move on.
Yeah. When I saw this first scene here, with the guy stripping down and running through the sub, I was just like, "Fuck you, leftovers!" In that like the most Rust Cole way possible.
Oh,
Like,
you liked
fuck
it?
you! It was an awesome scene.
I thought so too.
Because it was ridiculous and
Yeah.
over the top, and fed into like our questions about the nuke at the end or the explosion at the end of last
Right.
episode. It started to explain that. Now I don't think that's been totally explained based on the prayer that we hear.
Yeah, so get to that. That's
yeah, maybe I should read that prayer.
the whole thing, really.
I mean, it's not
awful
that long.
Okay, go for it.
I am the only hope, the last defense of a species on the verge of extinction. The demonologists warned us. These wise truth seers, they said these creatures will come 7 years after the first were taken, 7 years after the departure. And we were blind, God, blind to what we did not see. Now we stumble on the precipice of destruction. Once this monster is born, we're done, because this monster is the end of mankind, with its 7 heads and 7 flaming mouths. We have only one hope, the egg. I found its nest in the demonologist maps, a submarine volcano. Thank you, God, for technology. In our hubris, we made the weapon to end all weapons, the nuclear bomb. Now this terrible force may be our salvation, if its explosion can break the fragile shell and melt the demons inside. God, may the missile fly straight and true, let it find the volcano nest, and may the egg be unhatched, so these unborn beasts can be destroyed before they rise to destroy the world.
So
Wow. There's some demonology happening here.
Yeah, so this guy apparently has his little thing that he's trying to do to ward off the apocalypse is blowing up this island that's a dormant volcano that he thinks houses the egg that contains these demons.
Right.
And then, the other connection to demon is the demon Azrael that Nora's supposed to be a conduit for. What's the now there's a plane reading where Damon Lindelof is having a lot of fun destroying an uninhabited island in the South Pacific.
Uh-huh.
Like he's like to the extent that Leftovers is trying to wipe off the stain of his career, and he acknowledges
Of
that
Lost,
that's
right.
his. He doesn't endorse it, but he acknowledges that that's more or less his career narrative.
Mm-hmm.
This is a man atoning for his past sins. I think it's super funny that he's nuking the memory of Lost in this episode.
Right, he's doing it with all the same elements of Lost, though, which
Yeah.
is a little scary to me.
Guys running through hatches, and there's
Nuclear
people confined to
bombs, like-
wheelchairs, and yeah.
yeah, it's a little, it's on the line of maybe just going a little too far with some of the strange happenings.
Is this a dog man?
It could be,
He looked awful hairy.
could be a dog man, but his name's Lion. How does that line up?
Better a live dog than a dead lion, they say in the Bible.
So they do.
I'm not familiar with the yoga. Was that position used to turn the key a downward-facing dog, perhaps?
It's the double key turn.
It's a
Yeah.
dog.
It is. That's the official name.
So I mean, other than the glaring design flaw, which is the Russian the French failsafe being something that a human body could literally like. I'm sure the designers didn't think of this, but
Right.
like, hey, can we get a 6'2" person in here? Can you just Okay, we gotta. I know we only have a certain amount of width to work with in this fucking a submarine,
Yeah.
but we got to do something because
Put them on opposite sides of the wall. I don't.
yeah,
Like put glass between them, right? So you can see the other person. You could do the countdown.
There you go.
3, 2, 1, and turn. But
There
you're not
you
in the
go.
same room.
There you go. Yeah,
Easy solution.
Yeah, it seems like it,
Yeah.
but this
Unless
was,
you drill a hole through the glass and get your arm in. And
Yeah, but glaring design flaw aside,
Yeah.
now it makes it sound like that he actually launched a missile, not that he blew up the. My first thought is he blew up the submarine.
no.
So
No,
he
launched a
he
missile.
launches a missile and he takes out
That's-
this
yeah.
uninhabited island.
That's what I think. My biggest question is why does he have
And
to
that-
get naked to do this?
And that's the explosion. I mean, first of all, he's clearly lost his mind.
You think so?
Well, to the extent that okay,
To the extent that Matt has lost his mind, I guess.
No,
I mean, they both believe in roughly the same thing.
that's what I'm saying. I have no problem describing all these characters as mentally disturbed.
Okay.
That is my.
And Matt's gotten naked before, so
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Yeah, yeah. I also think there's maybe he just didn't want. He wanted free, unrestricted movement.
Yeah. I imagine unless you're in some really good jean shorts, you
Yeah.
probably can't make that
Those
stretch.
French submarine overalls seem like they'd bunch up in the crotch. You
Oh,
couldn't
yeah.
get full extension.
No.
And he needed that full extension. He needed every inch and toe that he could put on the thing to get his paws on the button.
Yeah.
But that's obviously the explosion, the detonation that shut everything down at the end of last episode.
Yeah. And my first question watching this episode first time through before I had read the translation of this prayer or anything was, what does this nuke have to do with the story at all? But I think if you look at it in the context of this episode, it's yet another of the wrinkles of God's plan here, right? Like whatever it is, whether it's the universe, whether it's a higher power, this is just the chaos of events that play out to create the scenarios that we're living in.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's a lot like that episode of Fargo where they say the point is there is no point.
Yeah, the useless machine.
Right.
See,
It's similar to that in that you don't have to understand why this is happening. It doesn't have to be directly connected. It can still affect the outcome and be satisfying.
See, I think I took a totally different take on that. I think that this is telling like this is imagine another version of The Leftover set in France.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is Tommy.
Right.
And this is the season 3 finale of that particular story. And we're
Yeah.
fully invested and we believe in the demon egg theory and we're highly sympathetic to what he's trying to do, this P Lion guy, and we cheer as the screen fades to black.
Mm-hmm.
In the exact same way this David Burton character is God, in the exact same way that Fraser the Lion is being worshipped by the sex cult. This is just some random stupid bullshit that that a single person has made a connection to and is trying to ward off the end of the pot. And we're supposed to, at least the message I got is this is all insanity. None of this means anything.
Right. I mean, the random stupid bullshit, as you put it, is exactly what I mean. Like,
Right.
This isn't connected to Matt's
It's
journey.
Senior working the rain line or
Right.
the song line. It's it's Kevin jumping into the reservoir. It's these people fucking to Fraser's memory. It's all a bunch of stupid shit that doesn't make any sense unless you've invested in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the GR burning the town in season 1, right?
Right.
Or however that happens.
Right, because they, in their mind, that all made sense to them, and that's what they should
Right.
do, obviously. So,
And it's probably not related to, some kind of overall like story that they're trying to tell here,
No.
other than it's a tangent kind of showing us what's going on in the world.
yeah, I mean,
it
there are
does
a couple things
intersect.
that've shaken my non-faith. Like it's hard for me to understand because the thing about this David Burton guy is we've seen him before.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard him talked about on the background of television. Laurie's book publisher mentioned this crazy guy in Australia. But we've seen David Burton twice before in the International Assassin Hotel.
I think the guy on the pedestal in Miracle.
Well, he sent
sent a letter to him.
He entrusted Michael with a letter to be sent to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
We also saw him on the bridge when Kevin had the young manifestation of Patty,
Yeah.
and he says you either kill yourself or push the child in the well.
He's in the International Assassin
He also-
episode in the hotel.
He's the
the
one that
bar.
leads the karaoke.
Yeah.
And he also, one of the biggest outstanding mysteries of The Leftovers is he whispered something in Kevin's ear once Kevin makes this firm decision to murder Patty, the child version of Patty, which we don't know what that was.
I am God.
I am God.
Yes, I am God.
I'm Yahweh. His name is like, his name Yahweh literally means I am what I am. It's the Popeye phrase. I think so. Oh, geez. Boy, this whole David Burton thing is going to go down a garden path. Should we do it now?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. One of the interesting things that David mentions is that he asserts that the real Christ, the quote unquote real Jesus Christ, was a twin brother. And what had happened was Jesus died. He was put to the cross, the stake. I almost said, the old witness coming out of me. And he was buried in a cave where he moldered away, and his twin brother appeared on the screen to take over for him, and then become worshipped as a god. Is not the clearest explanation for this that perhaps David Burton has a twin brother who did the exact same thing?
Possibly. Yeah.
Now,
Outside of the cave you're talking about?
the things that make this theory work is that if these visions that Kevin saw are real, it would neatly explain why he's seeing David Burton in the afterlife, because the real David Burton is dead, and now what's left is this imposter who's claiming that he's God.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of problems with this theory. Number one, how in the hell would you ever... your friend sees that you've fallen off a cliff, and he puts his body behind this cave, and then he goes off, and he comes back, and the twin's there. How would he know it? Also, how would a famous Australian who's a broadcaster and an Olympic medal winner, how would no one know that he had an identical twin?
Right.
These are questions. This is why I think that the literal fulfillment of this theory cannot be true, because those things are just, I think those are insurmountable for any person to overcome.
Yeah, I actually think the easier explanation is he's somehow like Kevin. Because we've seen Kevin, I mean,
So-
it's debatable, but I think we've seen Kevin die.
And that would
multiple
explain
times.
how he's bumped into him in the International Hotel, because
Right.
he's doing the same kind of death experimentation that Kevin is perhaps doing.
Yeah, and I don't know what it means that he's similar to Kevin. I don't even know what Kevin's Kevin-ness
Yeah,
means
right.
at this point, but they could be similar.
But that the thing that is the biggest assault against my rationality on this show is I can't explain how the fuck, without there being a real supernatural, an actual supernatural explanation. I don't see how he could see David in his dreams, and I don't see how he could make contact with his father hopped
Right.
up on Devil's Tongue.
Yeah.
Those both are the ones. I mean, it's just possible for me to dismiss the fact that he would see his father and they'd have some kind of joint, delusion and
Right.
and but this guy, I can't imagine. I can't.
Yeah, a guy he
imagine
doesn't
how.
even know. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, they could, like, in a flashback, you could see that, like, maybe he was on the screen and that Kevin was watching kind of absent-mindedly. Like, they could retroactively. I would think that'd be a little cheap,
Yeah.
but I could see them doing it. But it does seem like that's the hardest evidence and maybe the unassailable evidence that this is an actual, supernatural thing happening. Again, aside from the Great Departure.
Yep.
The
Sure.
Sudden Departure, because
Yeah.
people love to bust my balls on that. There's already been yeah, I know. I've watched the show from the beginning.
I love David Burton's explanation for it. Why'd you do it? Because I could.
Right.
Like, I don't need a reason. Like, if you're
Yeah.
God, you don't need a reason.
Why'd you make a horrifying Leviathan, which most people think is like the saltwater crocodile or something like that? Because I could.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, people go through their lives doing things because they can. What would make God any different? Why does God have to have some grander plan for everything?
It's very true. It's very true.
He wouldn't.
A lot of people. I don't think a lot of people thought this through.
Yeah.
Anyway, so is there anything else we need to talk about as far as David? Why did he throw a guy off the boat? Because he could?
Because
Has he started believing his own press and he's like, hey, there's a guy, I could get away with this. The captain's my friend. Everybody's on this boat fucking. I'm just going to murder this dude.
Maybe he wronged him. Maybe he did something terrible to David Burton.
Episode 6 is going to be entirely from David Burton's perspective. And we're going to find out that this guy actually tried to murder a twin baby to cure cancer.
Uh-huh.
And are we sure David's dead?
Not totally.
I've seen Kevin come back from worse.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions too. Do you think he'll be back?
I mean, the lion mauled him pretty good.
It did. Yeah, it
But
got him in
people
the
live
neck.
through worse, and also that seems like the lion is immediately executed afterwards. Which, boy, that really's got to be a harsh come down from your post all night sex buzz if you're a Frasier fan.
I felt like they maybe hesitated killing the lion.
Yeah,
I
there
don't know
was
why
a-
there wasn't immediate firing of those weapons, because
Yeah.
he's clearly gonna pounce on this guy
Yeah.
and murder him.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just like something so weird that you don't know. But yeah, you'd think of police. And these aren't American cops or Australian cops. Maybe
Right.
they don't pull their pistols for just anything. Maybe they don't even have. I don't know. I'm just making shit up. Maybe Australian patrolmen don't even have like guns. Like they'd have to literally go
Well,
back to their trunk and unlock
We
something.
see one of them pull a gun.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
Okay,
when
well,
David jumps over the
there you go.
fence and the lion gets loose,
There you go.
one of them immediately
Plus,
pulls
I
a
would
gun,
think,
but he waits.
like even the British police that don't normally carry firearms, if they were there to apprehend a murder suspect, I'm pretty sure they'd send a squad that was armed. Like they're not
Oh,
idiots,
yeah.
they're not fools.
Yeah,
They just don't carry guns as just just to patrol the fucking streets.
right.
Oh
One more question about David.
yeah.
Do you know anything about his book? What book was he reading?
So he's reading the like Louis Amour or whatever the fuck his name is. It's just he just wrote endless amounts of Western books, and this
okay.
was from a particular series of his. I did a little digging. It didn't seem like there's anything interesting about it.
Okay.
Just God reads romanticized westerns in his spare time.
Why is he so concerned with the book?
Is
Yeah.
he, or is he just passing time?
Well, I mean, the first thing he asks when he gets knocked out and wakes up is where's my book? Matt
I mean-
says I threw it overboard.
I mean, that's like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could just just make shit up.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay. I don't have an
I think it
answer
just, I think it mirrored. I took it as his concern for the book and Matt's disconcern is mirrored with Senior's, lack of concern for Matt's gospel. Like it just, like I found a book and I just threw it overboard.
Yeah.
Fuck you and your book. That's pretty mean. Of course, I guess Matt's dealing with a guy who's not only a blasphemer but a murderer as well.
Yeah, he's seen
So
some
I can see
stuff.
why you would hold his book in contempt. Can we talk about the significance of $20,000?
Okay, I saw a couple of posts about this.
This is a magic number that is coming up in Lost. Sorry, Freudian slip. The Leftovers again and again. So Matt gives this character Arturo, who's a licensed NGO, non-government organization, relief worker, pilot, $20,000 to fly him to Melbourne. Kevin Sr. hid $20,000 in a tin can for Matt
Which he
underneath the
took to
grill.
gamble with.
Yep.
and-
Matt gambled that $20,000 to try to buy his church. Nora smuggled $20,000 out of the U.S. when flying to Melbourne.
Yeah.
Why? Now, someone put a practical reason that, and I actually no, I'm sorry, that was just a joke.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
about passed on disinformation as a joke. Never mind. I can't think of any good reason.
I can't either.
It
Seems like an insignificant number. If you look at biblical writings, I don't think
Right.
20 is, or even 2 is a very significant number, other than like Noah's
Right.
Ark. But
yeah.
that's really a stretch.
And I think that's literally like I think that's just them thinking that that's what you need to propagate a species.
Right.
They didn't understand genetic diversity and functional extinction and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's weird. There's a lot of like the Bible has its own kind of like lumps. So like 30 pieces of silver seems to come up again and again. It's what I can't remember all the mentions of 30 pieces of silver, but the one that jumps out of my mind is that's what the Pharisees used to bribe Judas to betray Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? But yeah, I just thought that did jump out, that maybe it means something. I just don't know what it is.
I don't either.
Okay, what else do you want to talk about?
There are several prayers in this episode. That French one at the beginning is not the only one. There are a couple of Hebrew prayers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anything about their religion, so I can't
I have
speak
feedback
to what they are.
from the wife of a Jew.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, that might because they're particularly Jewish prayers. Did you say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hebrew prayers, but sure.
Right. So we can talk about that in the feedback.
Yeah.
Do
That's
you want me
fine.
to read it now?
Yeah. Let's do it now.
Okay.
Why not?
Let us see. Okay, KDP says, I'm sitting here with my Jewish husband watching a show, and he's going ape shit over the song played while Matt and company are flying in Australia. The song is called Avinu Malakenu, which I probably just butchered. not a native Hebrew speaker, which he's heard every year since childhood during this period between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur at services. It's sung daily during the high holidays and most importantly during the last service of Yom Kippur when the gates of heaven are closing. Could it be they're foreshadowing actual judgment day? In Judaism, it's the very last day a person can be written into the book of life. Very symbolic. So,
yeah, I mean, it's possible, especially when combined with the other prayer with the demon eggs, right?
and the fact that this is, the 7th anniversary is imminent.
Yeah.
Definitely. I thought that was pretty interesting.
I mean, the this idea of the monster that's being born in the French prayer with 7 heads and 7 flaming mouths kind of ties into the Revelation
Right.
Story, and
That's how Satan's depicted as a 7-headed dragon.
Right. So potentially, I mean, this is all meant to connect in that they're all prayers about the coming. If it's not Judgment Day, then it's the coming closing of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
This is the final moment to get in, and once the 7 years is up, it's done.
Let's talk about the opposite of prayer, which is a curse. Here, Lori takes in vain Christ's name, and she says that Kevin's not the goddamn second coming of Christ when they're on Arturo's plane, which immediately hit heavy turbulence. It sounded like it lost a couple thousand feet. Frightening experience. Made Matt at his smuggest this episode. The friendly people on Reddit pointed out that's not the only time something like this has happened. Last season, Nora is trying to single-handedly hold everything together. Lily, she's trying to take care of Mary. She turns on Matt's music, which neither her nor Lily liked. So she turns on this radio show where a guy is talking about how you got to deal with things by embracing Jesus. And Nora destroys the radio and says, "Fix that, Jesus." Instantly, the ground shakes, and Mary wakes up out of her coma. And then in season 1, in the episode where Jill kidnaps the baby Jesus, Kevin takes the God's name in vain and suffers a blowout right as he does it. Anything to be gleaned from this? People taking God's name. Oh, and also Senior telling God to fuck himself and having a lightning storm get whipped up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how much you think God is influencing the events of this series, and I think the point of this episode is to say not at all. Like if you believe that David Burton is God, he essentially says, "Look, I'm not doing anything for a reason, and nothing you're doing is influencing my plans.
Right.
So knock it off." I don't know. I think they're all just coincidences, frankly.
Yeah. Someone said I can't remember who it was. Because I read so much material on this episode, but someone said that the actual facts of the language of the leftovers doesn't matter so much as its emotional and symbolic meaning. Like that this experience with Matt, like analyzing the actual facts of it is beside the point because it's supposed to put in your mind the feeling of what it's like to be a fanatical believer.
Absolutely.
And like they're showing tons of counterexamples where a thinking person or a rational person would be like, "Oh, Jesus, look what I've got myself into." But yet Matt steadfastly ignores all of them and stays to the purity of his own course of action. I don't know. So maybe none of this means anything.
Yeah, and intentionally so. I mean, it's not about what it means. It's about how you view it, how you interpret it, and how you react to it.
How much of Matt's mania comes from the fact that he's dying? His cancer has come back. We don't know how long he's got left, but this isn't something very Job-like. The fact that he has lost his profession, he's lost his family, and now he's even lost his good health.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to make a person a little bit of a fanatic, right?
I suppose he realizes that his time is drawing short and he's got to make some things happen, which is unfortunate because it sort of feeds right back into his original problem, which is that idea of selfishness and jealousy and trying to force some meaning where there is none,
Does it also give him a little bit of a heroic bent? Because I think in his mind, if he stays in Miracle, no matter what the doctors say, things will work out. But he goes on this rescue mission to try to find Kevin, forsaking that safety. I mean, I don't see how Matt just thematically makes it out of the season alive.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense that we haven't. That this is the first time we've seen, his sickness, right?
Right.
Now that he's out of Miracle, it could very well be that Miracle is something special, and that by leaving it, he's taking a big risk. If he doesn't get back in time, he could die.
Were you surprised that he managed a fairly filthy joke?
Yeah, no, I want to hear the rest of Laurie's joke, but I think that was a pretty good one. Yeah. But that's the thing. Like,
I've
he's
looked
a
it up.
priest. He's
The
going to
panda
hear
walks in the bar. I guess that's a canonical joke, and it's not very dirty. It's not dirty at all.
Not very dirty?
Yeah, panda walks into a bar.
Well, it's probably good that she didn't get to say it then.
Orders something to eat. Finishes his meal. Fires a gun twice in the air, and then starts to leave the bar. And the bartender's like, "What the fuck, buddy? You're supposed to be this placid, monochromatic animal. What the hell are you doing with all this gunplay?" And he's like, "I'm just being a panda. Look it up." So the guy goes into encyclopedia, looks up panda, and one of the first things he reads is that a panda eats, shoots, and leaves.
That's not joke. That's not a dirty joke.
It's not dirty.
No.
It's kind of funny, but it's certainly not dirty, Lori.
Not at all.
You might be a lioness, can do whatever the fuck you want and be ungoverned by rules, but one of the rules you apparently are governed by is you got to tell a dirty joke. That's not a dirty joke.
Yeah, I'm glad she didn't get that one out. Matt's was better.
Yeah.
I don't think the Lion Lady's letting her on the boat if she tells that joke.
Also at his own expense. He's not a Catholic priest. He's a Lutheran.
I mean, that's
right?
the thing about everything Matt's doing here is he's completely ignoring all of the principles that he stands for in an effort to attain some visualized end goal, right? He is...
Why is he going against what he stands for?
He's trying to lie his way onto the boat. Michael points it out.
Yeah,
We're not fucking
yeah.
friends of the captain, you dipshit.
Yeah.
You liar.
This is going to get us, I don't want to be thrown in any kind of brig.
Right. It's... I mean,
Naval Jail is so special as its own name. It's nothing I want to truck with.
I don't think he should even be around this orgy, let alone... Because it's almost an endorsement of it in ways,
Jesus ate with the tax collectors and the prostitutes.
That's true.
Yeah, I think that's pretty thematic.
He probably shouldn't be taking a minor onto the boat. I would say that.
Is Michael a minor still?
I think he is. I want to say he was like 16. Well, I guess that would make him like 19
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
now. Never mind.
Wasn't he drinking at the party? I thought if he's a senior in high school, 18, then 3 years on.
Maybe. I think maybe Australia has different legal ages as well.
Yeah, on a boat? On a boat?
Well, you're in international water.
Come on.
What does that even mean?
Come on. You're not even in, you're in Tasmanian waters.
Right.
Everybody, we're lucky this wasn't a boat full of people in tornadoes going, yeah. But, so you're damn right I made a Tasmanian devil joke.
All right.
Okay. All right. What else we want to talk about? This is all over the place.
What is the hedonism on display here trying to tell us? I mean, what is its purpose other than just to be weird?
I don't know. Damon Lindelof in this interview seemed awfully proud of his peen count. And I'm kind of proud of him, too, because I've long said that there seems to be a double standard in American pop culture. It is you can show full frontal female nudity, but dicks not so much. Like if you do the breast and cleft count versus the dick count in Game of Thrones, there's one team that's way ahead in the counts.
Sure.
And he's kind of joyously pushing, he saw the Westworld and the shit that they were getting up to into the border areas of the park, and decided he's going to try to one up them.
Okay.
I honestly, I don't know. There's I guess a Sodom and Gomorrah parallel. There's a Samson parallel where this guy's trying to bring down this whole thing while he's in the midst of all this debauchery and well, I guess it would be false god, not anti-theism. I honestly don't know. I mean, the other thing is Matt almost got raped. Harvested?
Yeah. Harvested, I would say, yeah.
I was like, what? I was scared to death because when they wheeled out this wireframe lion, I'm like, holy shit, they're gonna put Matt in there and everyone's gonna take turns fucking him.
That's what I assumed too.
I was actually kind of relieved that it's okay, it's just a vacuum hose. You can get through this, Matt. You can get through this, but he wasn't having none of it.
Right. No, of course not. Of
He's
course
like,
not. This man is not going to go through that.
Matt is a powerful man, and he will not be violated.
It's against his religion to be violated. I'm pretty sure.
Especially with some kind of animatronic lioness.
Yeah, so the impression I get is they're going to collect all of his seed, and potentially impregnate everyone on the boat
Right?
by the end of the evening.
Yeah, and like that seems like a big like. I just feel like that 9/10 of every word said on the boat after midnight is Frasier. But I also felt like
Okay.
that's the first time they broke out the lion. So like, what are the rules of
Yeah.
Frasier Club?
I don't know. I mean, don't say Frasier. That's
Right.
line 1,
Yeah.
rule 1.
I would like to know the actual challenge and response to "I'm 91 and I've got no son."
Yeah,
Maybe it's just you sing the rest of the song that they had at the end of the episode.
maybe.
Did you know that this? Did
Something
we
about
talk
it.
about the fact this Frasier the Lion is a no shit thing?
Oh yeah, Frasier, 91-year-old lion who I guess was in Tijuana, and they took him over to California Zoo, and he banged all the lionesses there.
I mean, the
Ended
story
up with 35
is
sons.
even more pimp than the episode makes it out to be. Because like some of the stories, I'm like, I don't, because there's a lot of weird details. Like he was taken to like some kind of hippie commune zoo. So like I don't know if I
course.
believe everything, but
And had a
like
cuddle party.
the way this is told in the telling is that this 91-year-old lion is taken to this enclosure with all these lionesses that spurn all comers.
Yep.
And he gets one night with them, and they're all fucking cum drunk and like protecting him the next day, and they're feeding him the choicest of scraps and essentially worshiping like some kind of god. That, I mean, and he didn't do it through any kind of just with his fucking lion dick power. You got to give it up to the guy.
Lion dick power.
Yeah.
Alright, yeah.
I mean, not his truthful. Not I'm just saying like his species. I'm not saying he's like. I was not impugning his veracity. Like he had a false.
Oh
dick.
yeah, no.
Not his
course.
lion dick. His lion dick. Impressive story. But
Yeah, no, it's
what
everything
it
Lori
means-
says is totally true.
Yeah.
It happened in real life, I
Right.
guess. And there are multiple songs written about it. There's one specific song written about it that I think they play in the episode. There are a couple of cover versions and even like a disco version of it
Right.
that I also think they play in the episode.
Yeah.
They play a couple versions of it.
Yeah.
And apparently it cost them a lot of money.
Yeah,
to
I
get
read
that.
that article about this is the most expensive episode because they actually all that
Oh,
all that submarine
nightmare.
stuff was CGI.
And they had to build a fake dock for the
Uh-huh.
ferry to land on. They built it on a barge.
And they actually
There's
rented
no
out a ferry
Melbourne
to
dock.
film on, and they had all these extras who I guess are swingers in an Australian like fetish scene. Yeah,
Sounds like a lot of work.
it sounds like a lot of work by everybody
Yeah.
all night long. So yeah, what else do we want to talk about?
That's a good question.
Do you think the captain was a true believer in David?
He seemed pretty skeptical. I don't think so.
I don't know.
The way he told
the
that
way the
story.
guy just stood and delivered, and the fact he was so skeptical of him being a murderer, and the fact that he seemed kind of bummed at the end when he was essentially saying, "Oh yeah, I guess you were right." I kind of feel like maybe he was a disciple of David, because he also enigmatically at the end said, "You know, some people believe and some people don't." Like,
Yeah.
I kind of felt like there was a twinkle in his eye where he might be the one of the people that believes.
Yeah, I don't know. The vibe I was getting was not one of I believe in David Burton. I believe in God.
There was it, but I mean that was definitely another of the themes of the episode is the belief because like
Yeah.
Matt had this fantastic story, just like the fact that he got his his wife that was in a coma was pregnant, and he maintained his innocence all throughout the season. We debated it a lot on the episode, and it was actually mentioned here when he was talking to what's the eldest Murphy? John.
Yeah.
He was talking to John, and John's like, "Oh, absolutely, I believe you." He's like, "Oh, did you believe me? Like you believed I didn't rape my wife?" I just wonder if that was part of it too, the fact that this captain was a true believer, maybe the crew, because the guy
Yeah.
was talking about apologizing for God punched him in the face. Like, I mean, I guess he was kind of wry and ironic, but I didn't get the fact that like, oh no, there's just no way this guy's God. This guy's a joker.
I actually believe that guy thought he was God.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
But for some reason, I didn't believe the captain did.
All right.
I don't know. Maybe I would like my authority figures to be more rational.
Why is the woman who's infiltrated this lion cult, why does she let the lion go at the end? Are they animal activists? Are they anti-Fraserists? Are they...
That's a really good question. They could have infiltrated the Fraser group, but she's the one who's taken the roll call at the beginning, right? Like she's guarding the gate.
No, that's not the same. Not the
think
same
it's the
woman.
same person.
No, it's not. Trust. That's that woman's much younger than the one that was kind of the gatekeeper.
Okay, then maybe they infiltrated the group. Decided, I guess we're going to participate in this all-night sex party as a cover, or maybe that's
It's a tough job, but someone's got to do it.
Right. Maybe the cover for the all-night sex party is letting the lion loose at the end. Like one of the dudes really just wanted to go on the all-night sex party.
If you weren't down with it, you had to fend off advances all night long because like there was that scene where there's this couple's wandering back into the main fray after Matt's going out, and they're like, "Don't," and she's like, says to Matt, "Don't bother those two," referring to John and Laurie because they had clearly been propositioned.
Yeah. There's another thing that I find really interesting about Matt's conversations with David Burton. It's how mocking he is of this idea that he hasn't been struck down by lightning yet. That's the thing. All of these sarcastic questions that he's throwing at David Burton, like how could you possibly be God, are questions that you could throw at Kevin, right?
Yeah.
And Matt would defend him to the very end. This is truth. I've seen these things. He's experienced these things. And yet when it comes to some other man's claim about the same things, Matt is incredulous.
Yeah.
It feels very much to me like The Man from Earth. Do you remember that movie where it's a bunch of people sitting in a room and a guy essentially says, I'm super old. I'm like 14,000 years old and I'm Jesus, by the way.
Right.
And he kind of like takes this kernel of disbelief, this idea that he could be as old as he says he is. And in this case, David Burton could be God. And he kind of has an answer for every question, even though maybe they're not the answers you want to hear.
Right.
Like, in The Man from Earth, he essentially says he's Jesus, even though he's not like God's son. He's just a guy who got mistaken for someone who was God's son.
Right.
Here, David Burton is like, oh, yeah, no, I died. I'm God. And also, like, Jesus was just a dude. He wasn't my son, you know?
Right.
He's just a twin. It was a weird set of circumstances. And he's claiming the sudden departure was his work, which is interesting. How much do you believe that?
None of it. I think he is reacting to his own circumstances and grief the same as Kevin. I mean, he's literally an analog to Kevin and John and Matt obviously can't see it because he's too invested in this thing. And also there's a theme, like, talking about this theme of jealousy. There's also like this jealousy that Matt has that, like, John is no longer the fiery crusader that he was. It's like, you used to burn people's houses down for pretending to be things that they weren't. Now you are engaging that same activity and you're excusing all this others. Like, kind of what happened to you? And Laurie's quick to say, well, he found peace. And Matt is desperate to poke holes in that. But it does seem like that John is grounded in a way that Matt isn't, probably because he's had Laurie helping him get through a lot of this stuff. Because I thought maybe John would lose his mind when, it was revealed that Kevin saw Evie. And I also low-key kind of like, why doesn't Laurie just show the picture on her phone? Like, this is the person who he claimed as Evie. And everybody can be like, oh, okay, well, obviously that's not. I mean, she could just instantly disprove Matt and John both with that one picture, but maybe she's playing a longer con?
Or she doesn't think that would work, because I could see, like,
that's what I'm essentially saying, that she's treating these people as kind of mildly delusional, and your goal isn't to destroy their belief system. Your goal is to kind of help them appreciate in their own time. Like, all right, I guess maybe your goal is, as a therapist, to get them healthy and resilient so they can let go of this coping mechanism when it's time to. Like, you don't.
She is extremely confrontational in this episode, though, with Matt. So if that's her goal, I think she's going about it the wrong way. But
Do you think she's extremely confrontational? Like
Yeah.
in the early parts, but
Yeah,
she
yeah.
seems like at some point when
Yep.
what really turns the tide is when she says, "Please don't tell John," and he's like, "Well, what kind of person do you think I am?"
Yeah.
Well, he's the kind of person who's going to tell John when it suits him, apparently. But she comes to the conclusion that he's a good person, and that seems to like put all their animosity aside.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Lost my train of thought.
I don't have a whole lot more to say. I mean, so much of this action is thematic and based on parallels we're supposed to draw from the rest of the Leftovers experience. That I mean, we could talk about the art of the thing and how. Let's talk about I want to talk about that for a minute. I want to talk a bit about just like the art of this episode, and in particular Christopher Eccleston and how like good he is at doing this one particular thing, which is showing this kind of like this virtuous madman. I really particularly like how you could see him age regress back to that little boy in his confrontation with God. Like to the point where he said, "When I was a little boy and I prayed to you," like at this point he's fully given up the pretense that David is not God and he's just having a he's literally wrestling with God. And I thought that was amazing. And then at the end, where they show him after he reveals that he's dying, and they show him in this like beatific light, like this like he's about to dissolve into white light, and then they chose to show like this lion attack with his back of his head to us.
Yeah.
And like they really build up tension, because I'm thinking the whole time like it's like 10, 15 seconds, and I'm like, is he going to turn around and have this broad grin on his face? Is he going to be shell shocked? What's he going to think? And in the end, he just turns around and matter of factly says, "Oh yeah, that's the guy I was telling you about. That's the God guy." Clearly addressing a horrified John and Laurie, which I thought was interesting, because I remember watching. This is why I think it's silly to say that the trailers are spoilers, because we saw John and Laurie looking at horror at something. We're like, my God, what could they be watching about? We saw Matt smack someone with the axe handle.
Uh-huh.
But we knew nothing. We knew nothing of the circumstances of it.
Right.
And the fact that, like, also the guy with this paw on the button, we saw that in a but, like, without knowing, like, that was just, that's as significant as knowing that, the cave woman is going to get bit by a snake, or some woman is going to get bit by a snake in the season 2 opener. It's like, I don't know. It seems like it's beside the point if you're that worried about the plot of The Leftovers. I don't know. I don't.
Yeah,
it's almost
I'm
like
with you.
spoiler proof.
Yeah. The story is so weird at this point that they could really do anything. So it's tough to say. So your interpretation of the ending, I think there are a couple of ways of interpreting this. Maybe you can interpret it multiple ways. One way, which I don't actually think I buy, is that God is dead, essentially, and Matt has lost his faith at the end. I could see maybe if you're just considering that last scene out of context, but I think overall, Matt has kind of, the interpretation I agree with is Matt has let go of this idea of making his own fate, of getting back to Miracle. He's still, I think, on the journey to help Kevin, but in the way that Kevin needs help, not in the way that Matt thinks Kevin should act.
Yeah, because I don't think I answered this in our conversation in the beginning. The way I interpret that final scene is very similar to you, that like Matt is surrendering his role as an active participant in this story. That he is a witness. I mean, he's obviously a participant, but he is a witness. He might be a conduit. He might be a helper, but this isn't his story. And God's capable of taking care of his own damn business.
Yeah.
If God wants to avenge himself, then he can let loose a lion. If he can send down fire from heaven, he can strike someone with cancer. He can heal them. He can do whatever the hell he wants. Why is Matt so fixated on being at a particular place, a particular time? If God needs like anything but human faith, then he's kind of screwed anyway.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't think he's given up his mission. It's just he's now understanding. He's been properly humbled by his experience in addressing the Lord, much like Job was at the end of his ordeal. Do you think is Matt healed?
That's a good question. I don't think so.
Why not?
I don't think so. I think the snap and the "you're saved" thing from David Burton.
I thought he was going to get punched
I thought he was gonna get slapped
because they kept
yeah.
on setting the
He
fact
balls
that
his fist and
yeah,
moves it around.
I was like, he's going to cradle his hand and just square up and punch him right in his schnoz, just like that's that Chekhov's punch. He did get punched in the solar plexus, but I was expecting the nose shot because they've been talking about it all episode long.
Yeah, but he snaps, and I think that's curing Matt not of his leukemia, his illness, but of whatever preconceived notions he has about his role in this.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I agree. Shall we get to some feedback?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Mario D. The actor David Gulpilili, who played Christopher Sunday, was in a Peter Weir film, The Last Wave, which features a white man suffering premonitions of doom.
Yeah.
Now,
I've heard about this movie.
If you remember, The Last Wave, there was a lot of discussion about that because it has a character by the name of David Burton in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of like science fiction post-apocalyptic film. It does seem like all those things were intentional now because why would you cast this guy to play Christopher Sunday unless you wanted to really lean into his illusions?
Yeah.
I don't know that it has any predictive power, but I did think it was interesting that they've put another piece of narrative fabric around this Last Wave deal. Joe N, I think you're right. Nora is pregnant. But I think she's still being tested. The final test is going to be them telling her to kill her newborn baby to go see her other children. They presumably being the test people. Kind of kooky theory.
She's going to be the Abraham
Yeah.
to her baby's Isaac.
She'll be the Sarah, Abraham's wife to the baby Isaac.
Sarah didn't have to kill the baby, right?
Sarah did not have to kill the baby.
Yeah.
It'd be a gender bend on the classic.
Right.
I don't normally read theories, but the fact that this would explain, it ties into the Abrahamic whole myth.
Yeah, it extrapolates from the outcome there.
And you could also say, what if Senior insists that Kevin has to kill the child?
Mm-hmm.
Would that cause, and then what if Nora's like, no fucking way, I'm taking this baby, and then as she's fleeing the scene, something happens, the baby dies anyway, and then
mauled by a lion.
She gets mauled by a lion, and then she's haunted forevermore and can do nothing but wander the Australian outback gathering doves for nuns.
What if?
What if?
Yeah.
But I thought it was an interesting idea.
Okay.
Patricia T says, I live in Melbourne, Australia, and the lane you're referring to with all the graffiti is called Hosier Lane. Many of Melbourne's iconic laneways have street art, which is allowed by the city council. You referred to Banksy in your podcast, and indeed, Banksy art is located in a few of Melbourne's laneways. There is, in fact, a Banksy on Hosier Lane. She also submitted a wiki link to all of Melbourne's lanes in the CBD. We even have an AC/DC lane named after the iconic band. As an aside, it was through Swanson Street in Melbourne. It's very hard for me to not pronounce it the way it's written. The AC/DC filmed their iconic video, It's a Long Way to the Top, in 1976. And I actually got a lot of your fellow countrymen and women saying essentially the same thing. It's a real lane. It's real, and I guess that this is a historic district. It's kind of gentrified, and they've encouraged this kind of weird behavior. I wouldn't say weird behavior. This kind of quirky behavior.
Vandalism.
Yeah, they've encouraged
Artistic
vandalism.
vandalism.
They just gave up. They gave
yeah.
up and called it a community project. Jorge Blanco, thinking about the radiation and the way they found trace amounts of locations where people departed. How's that work if Laurie's unborn child departed? That's quite the heist without affecting Laurie, huh? This is the first time I've thought in a long time about the fact that Laurie had an unborn child that apparently was departed on the day of the departure.
Yeah.
We haven't pondered that fact for a real long time. Is that a silver bullet piece of evidence that rules out radiation? Ladder radiation?
I don't know enough about radiation to fully say.
I know enough that you can focus on teeny tiny parts of people's bodies, the deep inside them, to excise a tumor.
Are you trying to say that God couldn't use targeted radiation
Yeah.
to take away the 2% of people born and unborn that he wants?
I take it as a matter of faith that if there is a God, his technological development is at least on par with 21st century humans.
At least.
At least. So there you go.
I would hope so.
Jonathan from Israel. Anyway, after I heard your brief discussion on the question the scientist gave Nora about the twin babies, I felt that you left something almost completely out of the discussion. And that is, what do you think is the right answer to the question? I thought about the different responses, and I think the most interesting thing is to ask them, how do I know who is who? It's a very logical question, after all, because they are two twin babies, possibly even identical twins. If I'm going to kill one of them, and I would like to believe that I would, I want to know that I'm killing the right one. I feel like it is a question that is relevant to the departure and that there's a possible connection somewhere. What do you think?
Well, the reason I didn't discuss it is because I think there is no right answer.
Yeah,
I think it's all part of a further test.
I
But
mean, I feel like we discussed it in the way of not discussing it. We both said that these theoretical questions are stupid.
yeah, I mean,
the trolley
whatever answer you
problem.
give them, they're not going to be satisfied because that's part of the test.
And not only that, but like whatever answer you give in some kind of weird, hermetically sealed theoretical thought experiment is not. Well, I'm not saying it's not the answer that you would give if you had your paw on the button with the newborn's life and its balance. But how the hell? How the hell do you know?
I
How
can
do you
think
know?
of I can think of maybe one wrong answer, which is, "Oh, I've done this before."
Yeah. Oh no, I've got this. I've got this.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess I just didn't think it was that worth to explore, and the fact that the other guy got rejected by giving the exact opposite answer
Yeah.
was I felt like that was supposed to give us kind of a Rosetta Stone to understand that it's not so much the way or how you answer or what you answer, but it's the way you answer and then how that feeds into the other things that they've done to test you over the day.
Yeah.
Or it could just be something they tell people that allows them to dismiss them for any reason, for any time. Like, you know, so you ask a whole bunch of weird-ass interview questions, and then you get to the one that's like the big deal. Now, that might actually make it tough, because imagine if these people went on a message board and said, oh, whatever you do, don't whiff the baby question. Well, if that's just a smokescreen at the end that people can fixate on, then you preserve the sanctity of your test.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But I just don't. I feel like all that, like, what would you do if there was a trolley cart full of people and you could pull a switch and kill them but save the bus full of... Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? Let me know when that's actually happening, and I'll decide then. Dave McBride, you mentioned... Oh, Mel, this is a great... I laughed so hard when I got this email. You mentioned camels in Surah 81 was a regionalized view of Armageddon, but in fact, the Australian outback has a massive problem with feral camels.
Of course they do. Yeah, we know all about this.
Yeah, we should have made this joke ourselves, but we did, like, before we got into television, we did a generic two guys talking about bullshit podcast called Blue Yonder, and we did an expose on the scourge of feral camels on Australia. How they're so desperate for water they'll eat air conditioning systems.
Yeah, they roam through towns just sucking all the water out of air conditioners.
Yeah, they'll eat your garden hoses. They'll do whatever to get that water to fill it, to keep those humps full.
Yeah.
They were imported into Australia in the 19th century to assist transport and construction in central and western Australia, which was one big fucking desert. A large section of the population got loose, became feral. It's estimated there's almost 1 million feral camels in Australia. Interesting.
Yeah, don't they have like camel hunting seasons to go out and like thin the population?
He said a large cull occurred and dropped the population to 400,000. They killed 6. That's a camel holocaust.
It really is.
Wow.
It is. It's tragic in a lot of ways. Like, if the camels are going to take over, just let them take over.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Welcome your camel overlords.
Why fight the future?
You did it yourselves. You did it yourselves.
I feel like the people who are out there killing 600,000 camels are a lot like Matt. They're trying to create their own destiny here.
And that's why the Great Barrier Reef is dying.
Right.
If you left those camels, if you let the
camels wouldn't have let the Great Barrier Reef die. Is all I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. Their urine has a special chemical that kept the reefs in tip-top shape.
It did.
Carmelita in California. I grew up obsessed with new wave music and watching MTV. I hope we just didn't really piss off. That might be a sore subject.
What, the
The
reefs?
Great Barrier Reef dying. Like that's like
Yeah, it sucks.
that'd be like if fucking Washington's nose fell off of Mount Rushmore and like the world was like, yeah, ha ha,
But I feel like that's a
fucking George Washington got syphilis. We'd kind of be a little sore about it, I think.
I feel like that's a global loss. The reefs.
It is.
Like Washington's nose.
It's a
Nobody
wonder
but us
of the
gives a fuck about it.
natural, no shit wonder of the natural world. And in
Right.
30 years, it's going to be dead.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the fault of the Australians. Like that's the fault of everyone. We're all to blame for that.
Yeah.
Washington's nose. I think there's
There
probably
you go.
some
I didn't mean to make
Masons.
light of it. It's just
Okay.
feral camels are funny, and killing 600,000 is somewhat less so. And I was just trying to. I don't want to piss off
All right.
all our fans down under. Okay.
I don't blame you.
Sorry.
They're a wild bunch down
Sorry.
there.
I'm sorry I missed it. They have to be. Those fucking camels. Have you seen their throats?
That's true.
Their throats look like inverted cactus.
Yeah, they're really gross.
They really are. Google it. Google camel's throat and be horrified. Carmelita in California. I grew up. You
What?
held up the finger of
Oh,
pausing.
no,
I just saw
I was
this and I'm
pushing
like,
my mic
okay.
away.
All right. Goddamn, Carmelita's never going to get read. Carmelita in California. I grew up obsessed with new wave music and watching MTV. Take On Me happens to be one of my favorite songs from that decade, and the music video is by far my favorite of all time. If you get past the upbeat synth and drum machine beats to analyze the lyrics, Take On Me is about two people struggling to connect and the fleeting nature of that connection. The chorus is a challenge. Take the risk to take me on, even if that connection can't last. Nora and Kevin weren't sure when they first met how or if they could fit in each other's lives after the losses surrounding the departure. They took the risk, but since then have both been balked at getting real about grief and madness that they're both living in. In that epic hotel fight room, Nora accuses Kevin of avoiding commitments, and Kevin accuses Nora of being afraid to have a baby with him because then she'd have to move on. Throughout the song, there are references to uncertainty, hiding yourself from others, taking emotional risks, and moving on. All of this could relate to Nora and Kevin's relationship and maybe about their ultimate fate as a couple. I like to think there's hope for these two if they can each face down their fears, but maybe their connection was only ever meant to be temporary. As in the first verse, today's another day to find you, shying away. In the second verse, I'll be stumbling away, slowly learning that life is okay. Say after me, it's no better to be safe than sorry.
It's
Yeah.
a much better connection to the episode than we were able to make.
Yes.
So I like it.
because I didn't have any special fondness for AHA.
Yeah.
So thank you for that analysis. Gabe C. I also thought the U and Z slides and the ABCs of the departure. This is a recurring segment on our podcast now. Just reminder, season 1 of The Leftovers, they had a companion site called Watching. Wait, what was it called?
Watching the leftovers.
Watching The Leftovers, and they did this thing where they had an artist illustrate A through Z, the different alphabet of the departure. U and Z slides were particularly worth looking carefully at. I know this comes off as totally over analytical, but there's a few numbers on the side of the building in the U for uranium side that go 238.029. Now, as an aside, that is the atomic weight of uranium.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Okay. And I did look up the ABCs of departure, and that little shed that's in the shape of the bomb does have that number on the side of it. If you go back and look in episode 4, around the 20-minute, 20-second mark, if you're curious, there's a second where Nora is getting off the bus at the last stop. On the window, long story short, it's reverse reflected from the building, but the numbers are 238.029 on the side of the building that she goes into. The metal building in this image is obviously similar to the building Nora walks into. If you ask me, I think it was deliberately done to present obsessed fans with a similar question to the characters about distinguishing, interpreting coincidence and meaning. Is this evidence suggest that those doctors are related to the uranium bomb themes that we've been presented with? Or is it all a red herring?
I mean, after this episode, I'm saying it's less likely that the two are connected. Mm-hmm. That the machine is somehow connected with the nuke, but.
Well, but that's the thing.
it's-
Like, this is a pretty fucking deliberate connection
Well, here's
to
the
that
other
old
thing.
marketing material.
Right, and here's the other thing about the machine. We don't know where it is, right? It could actually be on that South Pacific island that this guy's trying to shoot with a nuke.
Oh, that would be funny.
Right. So it's still possible, but it's a little more dubious now.
All right. The Z slide, which is it's so the Z slide says 0,
Z is for 0, our final score.
our final score, and it has a picture of a deer that's looking up to a dove that is being skeletonized.
It's burning, yeah.
It's on fire,
Dropping from the sky.
and it's like a nighttime kind of scene. There's also like a building on fire in the background with like there's like some stick figures, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, there's a bunch of buildings in the background burning.
So that's kind of a dark way for this series to end. But I also think that he continues, the symbolic relationship between Kevin, deers, and dogs was established in season 1. I think Kevin embracing his father, who he knows is crazy, at the end of this episode shows Kevin flipping to his deer side. And I also think it's safe to say the deer looking up at the burning dove and the image is symbolic of Kevin looking up at the end of the episode towards Nora and the burning building. Pretty solid.
Okay.
I mean, boy, that would be a down. Like, I mean, literally, if the whole, it would be okay. How's this for an ending to The Leftovers? Everyone's fucking craziness ends up resulting in a nuclear holocaust. Like this French shit is a provocation that eventually has the whole world being engulfed in a nuclear war and no one survives.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that being a logical outcome of
That
this
would
whole
be.
thing.
I don't know what you learn from that. Like
I
better
mean, yeah.
hope nothing like the Great Departure ever happens, or we'll fucking lose our minds and turn back to cavemen with nuclear weapons.
Right. I mean, it can be the cautionary tale, right? Like, this is what happens when something you don't understand is interpreted differently by everyone, and no one can get over it.
Finally, I just want to ask your thoughts on Jill's fall from grace or significance in season 1. Sure, there's time constraints for the showrunners meant writing off some characters, and college is an acceptable, believable excuse for her departure, quote unquote, from the show. But being a younger viewer, I resonated with Jill's character very much, and not having her around leaves me with a sense of disappointment.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Jill a lot too. I like the actor that portrays her. I thought she did a lot with a little that was handed to her. Unfortunately, I feel like that we probably won't see any of the people in Miracle again. I feel like that we were given shorthands that kind of know that they're okay, and now we are going to concentrate on the people who are still fucked up and broken.
Yeah.
And Jill, I mean, happiness, the happy part of it is Jill apparently is not one of those people.
Yeah.
She's moving on with her life.
Yeah, it seems like it. I just feel bad for Michael because, he had a good thing going there.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah, Jill seems cool. Sorry, Michael.
I imagine him helping write a book about her father being Jesus
Yeah.
would really harsh the relationship buzz.
Probably.
Really be a barrier to them being close.
Yeah.
David from North Carolina. I have one very important question. Why do you guys think HBO has upped its peen showing in Game of Thrones, Westworld, and Leftovers? Is it art, or did they feel there was a big imbalance the first few seasons of Game of Thrones?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the latter. I think HBO is trying to be, a little more conscious of their image with, let's say, younger, maybe more enlightened generations of people. And I think it is actually a reaction to internet culture at large.
Yeah. I tell you what.
And I don't think it's a bad thing.
No. I think that Damon Lindelof has read or listened to every piece of criticism that's ever been written about him.
Probably. Yeah.
Like, it just screams from the interviews and stuff, and I wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised if Bald Move is just a little bit, because that's one of our.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, we were on penises are underrepresented in pop culture.
If you knew that Mr. Lindelof was listening right now, I'm going to be as respectful as possible to Sir Lindelof. What would be your message to him? What would you want him to know?
You keep cranking the peen lever, man. Crank it we got a lot of honestly to bring balance to the force. The next 2 seasons of Game of Thrones, every male has to be filmed from the waist down naked.
Every single one.
Every single one. If you do those 14 to 13 episodes like that, every single frame, we might gain balance. And then we can go back and be equal opportunity dick and tits community.
Right. New series from David Lindelof, and his brother Damon Lindelof. The Left Unders,
the Left Offs,
the Left Offs.
It's what does a world look like if everyone's normal except for not wearing pants?
That seems. I think Ricky Gervais has made this series already somewhere.
I didn't think it's fascinating because I've literally never seen a naked man run, and I've always wondered what the mechanics would be. Like, on occasion, I have ran nude, but I've never been. it's always been like
Short.
something horrific
You're not doing a
happened. Like I was
decathlon.
in the shower and I hear a crash from the kitchen, and it's just fucking whip the curtain open and start sprinting. And I've never been able to like study the biomechanics, and like seeing a naked man run in slow motion, I thought was fascinating. I thought it was fascinating.
I mean, everything you think is going to happen happens, right?
Yeah. Is it pain? Do you I mean, I feel like it'd be painful.
I mean, I've ran in
too.
boxer shorts. I feel like it's approximately the
Just
same.
boxers. That's a story.
Yeah, or boxers and baggy shorts. Like
Uh-huh.
I feel like it's approximately the same, right? The boxers don't do any support jobs.
They don't do support, but they
No.
gotta damp the motion. They gotta moderate.
suppose
They
maybe
gotta
a little.
moderate the bounce and sway. They have to.
Really, I think they're just there to cover.
You
I don't think they do much at
no,
all.
there are no stabilization devices, no
don't think
anti-sway
so.
bars.
No.
We need engineered underwear.
We have it, don't we? They're called boxer briefs. They're good.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking like you might need some dedicated, I like what they do with athletic supporters.
If I could say
But
one thing to Damon
we
Lindelof,
need articulated suspension. That's
That's
the
it.
ultimate. Yeah.
we do it, Damon. Make it happen.
Yeah, we the next generation should be the first generation to not have their balls touch the toilet water when they get to be 60 years old. All right, can we do that? Can we fight gravity?
Yeah,
All right.
make it happen.
Daniel S. The music playing in the background during several scenes. Oh, we already talked about that. I thought I had only one. Let's start over. David S. The David Burton character embodies an interesting spin on the theme of faith explored throughout The Leftovers. What if God exists but he is evil? Is that the theme explained, or is God
He's
indifferent or
ambivalent. Yeah.
unfathomable?
Yeah.
Like in a Cthulhu sense. I always thought that's a valid take on the Abrahamic God. He's just like you can't understand him. It'd be like, an ant trying to
That's
figure
possible,
out
yeah.
what the humans are up to. Like they might think and they might analogize, but they would never be able to fathom what the hell we're all about.
Yeah, it's surprising because despite David Burton throwing a man overboard to his death, I didn't view him as evil in this episode. I don't know what that says about me, but I viewed him more as indifferent to the woes of mankind.
Yeah.
And whether, I assume in this story he would have been the creator of mankind, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he needs to have an active, caring role. In its progression.
Even as a believer, I always had I had a hard time with the concept of God being omniscient, omnipresent, and omniloving. Because, like, if you literally believe all the God stuff, like, you know how jaded, like, paramedics and doctors get? Like,
Sure,
you
yeah.
can't literally sob and hold every one of your patient's hand as they shuffle off to mortal coil. You would be a fucking basket case. Like, God's that on a cosmic scale. Like, all these things are happening in his creation. He's hand-tied because of this crazy-ass celestial judicial case against Satan that's
Right.
ongoing litigation. He can't comment about it. But it's got to be, like, if he's omni-loving, then it's just got to be, it's got to be, a fucking morgue up in heaven. The fact that, like, just how bad everything's going down here. Even if at the end everyone gets resurrected or in heaven, like, there's still the grief that you observe from the people that are down there. I don't know. Maybe they treat it like a 2-year-old skin in their knee. Like, they're sobbing. It's like, come on, it's not
Right.
that bad. You're going to be in heaven soon.
Right. And the other option is, you create a thing. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to nanny it.
Yeah.
I mean, let it be. Let it do its own thing.
Throw them in the deep end. They'll figure it out. And if not, there's always heaven.
Yeah.
Ben T from the UK. I did love this episode and how fucked up the party boat was. It was like a scene from Westworld. But
Was it? I didn't think it was that fucked up. I thought it could have been
Yeah,
more
you
fucked
know,
up, honestly.
People are weird. Like, what? Yeah, you're right. Like, that's not the way normal people do. But
It's an
like,
orgy. I mean,
Yeah, like-
I've never participated in an orgy,
Uh-uh.
and it's certainly out of my experience. But I didn't think it was like the Caligula shit.
That's the thing. Like, I have not participated in an orgy, but I've been familiar with people that have. And that's the thing. Like, these people get off the boat, and it's not like they're orgy people all the time. That's
Yeah.
just like what they do. Like, the way you go, like the way a person would go to like a video game convention and like fucking put on their Halo shirt and smoke weed and eat pizza with their buddies all weekend. That's not how you
Right.
live your life normally.
Yeah.
It's just something you do to I thought that was.
And I didn't think anything happening on the boat was particularly weird, except for the lion stuff.
Yeah, the lion
Like
theme.
the theme was strange, but the activities were pretty tame, I thought.
I mean, there's like a lot of. I mean, the thing that was
There were people
the,
boning
the,
in
the
public.
kinkiest thing was trying to siphon off Matt's sperm for
Right.
the robotic tiger lioness.
Yeah, that got weird.
That got weird, but I could see it also being like super pleasurable if if you're in the right mind space.
If you're one of the lions, right?
Yeah.
If that's what you're
something-
there
There's
for.
something kinky about these lionesses harvesting your seed.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree on that.
Oh, we all agree. Yeah.
Okay, so say we all. But my big question this week is, do we actually think there will be some big event on the 15th? I was convinced early on in the series that there will be, but now I'm not too sure. When I first saw the line on the boat, I thought we were getting some kind of arc messages, but that soon got extinguished. David Burton as God didn't pan out. It didn't seem to have any real significance. There could well be some religious significance for a lion-eating God, but I don't know. I'm curious to hear what you guys think now after seeing this. If you're like me and actually starting to think this is all coincidences, that Kevin actually got mental health problems, like Laurie says, that there will be no event on the 15th other than Kevin Garvey being murdered by his dad via drowning, or is there still a possibility that Damon was just using this episode to bring us back to Earth before smashing us with something truly end of days and unexplainable?
I think there's going to be something cataclysmic that happens.
I
think this is
why
a-
are you laughing?
I think this is a reversal of what I said before a couple of episodes ago, which is why
Okay.
I'm laughing. Yeah, I think there's gonna be something cataclysmic. It's gonna go off, and whether it's man-made or whether it's some divine purpose, yeah, I think something's gonna happen on the 14th/15th.
I feel like the set of all things acceptable and unacceptable for the ending of Lost is starting to converge with me. Where
You think so?
like, because I was just thinking like, if nothing happens, I would think that would be satisfied. If
Yeah.
the world goes up because of some nuclear war, that would be satisfying. If everyone from the leftover, if everyone that departed just returned, that would be super fucking
I
interesting.
think it's the
And-
least interesting. I've seen that. It's the 4400.
Oh, see, I haven't. So
Okay.
I'm just like a global flood, like a localized flood that these characters think is real, but it's not. That's all kind of interesting, and I keep coming up with like aliens. I guess aliens is the most hackneyed, but
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It satisfy my rational. My rationalist.
Yeah, I
there
think-
is an explanation for all this shit.
I think aliens and everyone coming back are the least interesting to me.
Right.
I would rather see nothing happen or the fruits of our own, lunacy coming back to haunt us.
As long as he
Or
cranks
potentially another supernatural event.
As long as he cranks the D lever to maximum, everything will work out fine. George S. That exchange between Matt and Burton hit me in the feels. It's a conversation many believers have had internally. All this has to be for a reason, right? Tornadoes, hurricanes, disease, famine. Are these all truly God's will? It's so important to be able to place responsibility to the unknown on something. The idea that these things just happen can be maddening to someone that believes in a higher power pulling the strings. That is the importance of a belief system, to know that everything we do is part of a bigger scheme or plan. That's always why I think people shouldn't shatter other people's beliefs. Unless we are harming one another, does it really matter what we tell ourselves? Maybe what this episode suggests is that we have to respect the many different conflicting beliefs in the world, but also be more than just a belief system. At the end of the day, we must be able to live side by side anyway.
I mean, that's certainly true.
As long as that set includes people that have no belief, because, that is one of the exciting things about being a secular atheist is you get to wrestle with all those things, and there is no right answer. You just have to kind of make whatever thing meaning in life makes sense to you. I also been shocked at how many atheists it's kind of get spiritual when they rap with that question. Like, they talk about like the fact that we're made of star stuff and how it's like, why is it okay?
It's awe-inspiring. I don't know that it's spiritual,
But
though.
that's only awe-inspiring. Why is it awe-inspiring? Why is any random fact more amazing than anything else?
'Cause
You're
of the
made of
scale
shit that
of it?
came from an exploding star.
Because of the scale of it? I don't know.
You're
The
made
time
you're made
involved,
from
the
matter that used to
distances
be
involved.
a superheated soup of stuff that wasn't.
Why is a man jumping 1 foot less awe-inspiring than a man who can long jump 7 foot? Like,
That's also not. I can long jump 7 feet. That's not awe-inspiring.
I doubt you could long jump 7 feet.
I can. Fuck you,
It's
dude.
tough.
I'll wager. I'll wager your next Chipotle burrito on the fact that I can.
Oh,
jump
I can't
7
give that
feet.
up. I can't. I'm afraid.
It's the only thing you
No,
hold
but
precious and dear.
It's a matter of scale, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, seeing just how small we are as compared to everything that's out there, I think is awe-inspiring in a lot of ways.
But that's what I guess my point
the frontier,
is.
the infinite possibilities,
My point is this: you've still got a person at the end of the day drawing a line and saying, "Oh, this is fucking awesome." If you think about it, which is kind of like that is spirituality in a nutshell, isn't it?
I don't think so. I mean, spirituality to me is something that is outside of the context of what we like know and understand as being like physically true.
That's what I'm saying.
But
Is like if you start pulling in
the word
subjective
spiritual
things
is a
like,
weird word.
Huh.
Like it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
I guess that's
and
true.
I don't know. It depends on how you define it.
All right. Well, I don't want to get in another religious debate. I'd rather engage in penis debates.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if the lesson is we all have to live. The thing I guess I'm worried about is I don't know that the lesson is we all have to live side by side with each other. It does seem like this show is encouraging us to believe that there is some version of the truth that's more true than others. Like even as we're openly kind of derisively mocking David and these lying people, like we're still as viewers of The Leftovers taking Kevin and his bunch seriously, if for no other reason than we care for them.
Yeah.
And we hope they're okay. So I don't know. I don't know how they're going to end up squaring that with this, like the fact that this is essentially an examination of how people deal with grief. Whether what you believe about humanity is going to influence that. Like, do you believe the best or the worst about them? Because people deal with grief, they commit suicide, they abuse drugs and alcohol, they abuse each other, they do all kinds of harmful things, and those aren't to be lauded or held up as like they're certainly something that people can understand and get help with, but it's not like those behaviors are amazing or worthy of like tons of study or reflection on, is it?
Yeah, I don't know. In a TV show,
but
potentially, I don't know.
But I'm saying like if we're trying to get a larger takeaway from this, what you know?
I mean, really, the larger takeaway depends on the ending. I mean, first of all, if I were to try and guess what that would be at this point, I would say it's something along the lines of just trying to understand each other better and humans and why they do the things they do, and just trying to deal with grief and loss.
I mean, I hope that the moral of the story comes down to that admonition that everyone that you meet is fighting a great struggle and to be kind to each other.
Sure.
Like everyone's dealing with a lot of shit, and we shouldn't if you ran into Nora Durst in any average like shopping mall lot in America on her worst day, you'd be like, God damn, what a bitch. Or Kevin, you'd be like Kevin Sr. would be like, what a fucking asshole. But we all understand and kind of like, oh well, this is what's happening, and if we can generalize that to everyone around us, the world would probably be a better place. Or it could be overrun with assholes like Kevin and Nora. Then what do you do? You cull them. You cull them. You get the counter camel forces from Australia, and you sick them on all the assholes.
Yep.
Check their throats. That's how you know. Kevin P. Was it just me, or did you guys also notice the symbolism of Matt pushing David Burton in a wheelchair and demanding answers from him? It reminded me of the relationship Matt had with Mary before she woke up, where he was pushing her in a wheelchair and talking to a comatose woman, expecting her to give it answers an omniscient God can't. I actually didn't make that connection until Kenneth talked about it. Yep. Matt using a wheelchair for good and ill. KDP. Oh, we already read that. It's the one with the Jewish husband that talked about the songs and the prayers sung here being connected to the Jewish version of the Judgment Day. Sherry S. All right, we got two negative takes. Starting to lose some of the faithful here, Jim.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm the only one, but I was extremely disappointed in this episode. Last episode was just okay, and this episode did nothing to improve my confidence in the writers. I found the performances to be flat, and the dialogue and the plot completely disconnected from what I believe the characters would say or do. I don't believe for one second that Matt would entertain that Burton was actually God. His faith was unshakable to the point that he let his wife and son leave him, but one orgy and a few nosebleeds later, and his mission and purpose is over. Everything just seems off. It feels like everything has suddenly taken a hard left turn. The choices the writers are now making just seem to be bizarre rather than an imaginative yet authentic glimpse into this bizarre world. A lion attack? Really? I'm so afraid that my favorite show, which has to this point been nothing short of genius, is going to blow the ending. With just a few episodes left, please convince me that I am wrong. I've always avoided watching Lost because I've heard how poor... Oh, you're not... that's the show that cannot be named. So what would you say to Sherry, who's very concerned here? I take issue because I find that most of her subjective opinions I see as incorrect. Like,
Okay.
and that's the hell of it, right? Like, your subjective opinion is wrong, Sherry. But seriously, like, I think that if Matt knocks out Burton and he instantly converts to his worshiper, that would be a stretch. But I feel like that scene, which lasted for a long time, was to suggest that Matt was just completely disarmed by this guy's matter-of-fact answers, to where he started to, despite himself, entertain, and then got wrapped up in his own pathos and his own anger and unresolved issues with God, that he couldn't help but use it as a surrogate.
Yeah, and you got to remember, this is a dying man, right? He's desperate.
Who thinks that the weight of the world is on his shoulders, just like Senior.
Yeah, he's extraordinarily stressed out, and he crumbles. You know, he hasn't slept in a very long time,
right?
Because he got no sleep on the plane, no sleep on the boat. He's been in this atmosphere which has got to play havoc on his senses and his sense of who he is in a lot of ways.
He's taking some kind of pills that suggest that he might be on some kind of chemotherapy, or
right. Who knows how it's affecting his body, but he's a broken and desperate man by the end of this. And I think that is always when Matt has been at his most interesting, right? Is when he is on the edge with the struggle of his faith. And I think in season 2 we saw a lot of that, which was fantastic. I mean, the Matt episode was maybe the best of that season. And I think he's back to it in this episode. And maybe, just maybe, he's finally come to some kind of realization that he can't continue down that path.
Yeah. And almost every series, with very few exceptions, has a couple of episodes that they have to do a certain amount of arranging the furniture to get you to the next emotional punch. It's very few shows that can just be pow, 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 where everything just seamlessly flows. That a lot of this emotional resonance that we have with a show like The Leftovers is pent up frustration and pent up emotions that finally gets released with the characters, and we experience this catharsis, right? And you have to build tension, and some of this unrest and ennui that you're describing might be some of that. Like, intentionally, we need this episode of Matt to really sell it when something with Kevin happens later, and we needed the episode with Senior, and we needed these episodes to fully understand what comes next. That they might be not super entertaining by themselves, although without exception, I thought every one of these episodes have been beautiful and super watchable. But
yeah, I mean, you definitely don't want to give that to a show as an excuse to kind of coast for a while, right?
Right.
Definitely don't want to do that, but it is necessary in a lot of cases.
The problem is you can't often diagnose coasting from piece setting, from pieces moving on the board until you look back.
Right, I just mean those pieces need to be engaging, and I agree with you. I think they have been,
right,
to a large degree.
Yeah, I mean, it surprises me that this far into the Leftovers experience, we're having people that are this down with the thing. But on the other hand, since they know it's coming to an end, I feel like, number one, this is a subjective opinion, so no one's wrong, no one's right. Secondly, there is a lot of pressure. Like, if this is your favorite, if you're like me and you say this is your favorite show, certainly in recent memory, and the one that's emotionally connecting you the most, the fact that the fact that they've satisfyingly ended the other 2 seasons, if they don't do it this time, it's going to be like a cruel joke.
Yeah.
That we have this unfulfilled feeling inside of us. It's never going to get where we kind of made peace with it before, and now what? I
feel like the fans who have a lot of expectations as to what they want to see at the end of this and how they expect it to end, whether that be on an emotional note or a specific event, I think those people are a lot like Matt. And what you need to do is just let it go. Like, this series will play out the way it's going to play out. And if you're looking for a very specific set of circumstances at the end, you're more likely to be disappointed.
Yeah. That's not the same as saying you can't have expectations, because I do have expectations for how the series will feel when it ends. And
Okay.
my expectations have been set from the previous, where I've always felt like that, hell yes, I could use more leftovers in my life, but I feel very satisfied. And I've always analogized it like eating a big meal at a very nice restaurant. Like, I would love to come here and eat again, but I'm full right now. And I'm leaving this satisfied, 5 stars, 10 for 10, would gorge again. And that's what I want to feel like at the end of this. I don't know what that will look like. I don't know what that'll feel like, but I do want to feel full and satisfied.
Yeah.
And yes, I would always be leaving more than less, but that's the feeling that I want to feel, that contented feeling. And they've done it 2 out of 3 times.
Yeah.
So depends on whether you're a bear or a bull as far as what do you think about those odds. JJ Johnson. It looks like Lindelof is finally quote unquote lost. The look, the feel, the stretching to find a satisfying end to story of this episode all felt like the last couple seasons of Lost. There was even a submarine. With only 4 episodes to go, there's no more room for this crap. I think Lindelof might have had the same weakness John Grisham has. He can create very interesting situations, create a story with intriguing conflict, develop characters we deeply care for, but simply can't resolve the story in a satisfying manner. In fact, what Lindelof should do is create a show, run the show until the last season or maybe halfway through the last season, and then have a fight with the network and get himself fired. Someone else could finish the show. If it goes well, then great. If not, then at least it's not Lindelof's fault. I mean, Lindelof thought he was ending The Leftovers every single season he's done it, and he's done a good job. I mean, I feel like it's unfair at this point to bring all of the Lost baggage in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's, cue the people saying there was no problems with Lost. Lost was perfect. You guys just don't understand it. Whatever. 2 out of 3 seasons have ended in ways that I found were very, very satisfying. He could cock it up, but it's not like this show had a 3-season plan.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it distinctly different from Lost, where they maintained they had a plan, and in the end they didn't. So I don't know. Like, how do we know that this stuff is wasted with 3 episodes to go?
We don't. I mean, the plain fact is we don't know yet.
I mean, we can
right?
meet this. Kevin could get suffocated next episode. We meet this French guy in heaven with David, and they're all fucking each other lion style, and it's all going to be the most amazing thing you've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know. Like, will you feel good, foolish? The other thing I always hate to see when fans do this early on is
then you sort of invest in the failure of the show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, you've staked your claim. This is going downhill. Now you've got to see that through.
Right. Like that. There's this internal bias to where, since you see of yourself as a clever student of pop culture, that you saw this coming and that you want it to be true.
Yeah.
Because if it's not, then you weren't as clever as you thought you were. And
right.
I mean, I've done that to myself.
Yeah.
I've seen other people do it all the time on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And, it sucks, which is why I try for the things that I really want to enjoy to really limit my expectations and to keep an open mind, because you can otherwise fuck up stuff that you might otherwise have enjoyed.
Yeah.
So, but on the other hand, I mean, again, I'm also open to the idea that this thing could be very, very disappointing.
And again, this is a show that is just not for everyone, right? And and especially when it gets weird like this.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very weird episode.
Right.
So I can understand why some people who may have been on board through season 2 and part of this season might not be down with this.
Yeah. And you will always have the first 2 seasons of The Leftovers, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, for the people that think that the final season of The Wire is a misstep, you've always got the first 4 seasons.
Sure.
Like, just pretend season 4 never happened, or season 5 never happened, or just watch the part where Bubs goes up the staircase at the end and pretend like that was at the end of season 4, and you're done. So, I mean, the prequels didn't make Star Wars suck.
Right.
They just were bad prequels.
Yeah.
So if season 3 of The Leftovers sucks, then the first 2 seasons will still be good, because there was no plan. There was no plan for this 3rd season. So, I mean, far be it from me to encourage anyone to have faith, but I think it's warranted in this case. Both with like throw out Lost and just the pedigree on this show with this creative force and these writers, you know, and the fact that like I don't have any vested interest in this being good, because like at this point, if The Leftovers ends up sucking hard, it will be probably as popular and entertaining to cover the collapse as it would be everyone's, you know, singing its praises, right?
Okay.
Like we're here for the fan base, and we're not the type of fans that will deny the thing being objectively shitty if it turns out that that's what it'll be. I guess I am starting to wonder, like, what happens if the final show's over and the fan base is sharply divided? I mean, we have to talk, like...
Yeah, it's rough because, like, I am sort of invested because I think Lindelof has a lot of really good ideas, and he's a great storyteller and character builder.
Right.
And I want to see what he does next, and I want him to have the right budget. I want him to have the right
and
support.
If this is seen as another creative failure, quote unquote, that is going to
might
hurt.
not ever happen.
Right. Because Hollywood's fickle, man.
Right.
Really fickle.
Yeah.
You don't get second chances a lot.
So I guess I am a little bit invested in this, at least being accepted as critically, well accepted critically.
Yeah.
Even if the fans are not totally on board with it.
Right. But I mean, that's the only thing I can promise. Like, regardless of how it goes, and I said this to someone else, your voice is going to be heard. Like, we're not the type of podcast that squashes dissent.
Right.
Even when we don't agree, like these two emails, they're definitely like, that's the reason I always say we're a fan first podcast. We try to cater to all of the different types of fans, you know, that a show might have. There's disillusioned fans, there's happy fans, there's fans that say everything should stay to status quo and there shouldn't be. There's like, and we try to talk about all that. If someone's got a voice and is saying it, then, and you know, they actually, the other thing is like, if they actually, you know, support their arguments. If you just say something's bullshit, then whatever, why is it bullshit? That's important. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter to me either way. Like, if Lost is good or Lost is bad, as a podcaster, it'll be entertaining to cover it either way. But I hope it's good.
To a point.
Oh, I mean, that's the thing. Like, if it sucks really hard, it'll be good to have a megaphone to talk. Like, that'll be very cathartic to talk about how bad it sucked.
I guess I just don't. Do people listen to that? I suppose so.
Oh, of course they do. Of course they do. We know they do. Like, when there's a bad episode of Walking Dead, our numbers skyrocket because everybody knows that we'll fucking like ream it to death. So yeah, like if something's really good or really bad, I feel like everyone if there's let's say there's 10 Leftovers podcasts, and that is really good or it's really bad when it finishes up. I imagine that the average podcast listener will probably listen to more podcasts that last week than they would of otherwise in a season. You might have your favorites, but then at the end, like, you want to get all the perspectives and you want to make that moment last, or you want to struggle to comprehend the bullshit that you just saw. So, like, you know, from purely from purely just, you know, mercenary podcaster perspective, I can't see it being bad for us, whether it's good or bad. So I'm not going, and that's all to say is, like, I'm not going to sugarcoat the truth or hide the truth or hide those perspectives.
Yeah.
That's the only pledge I guess I can make. All right. That's a pretty long-winded way of dealing with the people that are not digging the show right now. And I hope you guys do. I hope everybody gets right with it, especially Lindelof and Parada. We will be back next week. If you'd like to send us feedback, it's leftovers@baldmove.com, or you can go onto our forums and talk with your fellow fans at forums.baldmove.com. We'll be back. Only 3 episodes left, man.
Yeah, that's it. And the show's over for good. It's a shame. But, you know, well, we say the show's over for good. Who knows? Maybe they'll come back with season 4 or a movie or, I don't know, a cartoon, Saturday
prequel.
Morning prequel.
I want to see a whole season about the Garveys at their best.
Yeah. What about dog people?
Mm-hmm.
Might maybe see it from the other side of the equation.
Yeah, Planet of the Dogs.
Right.
That's what takes over from Planet of the Apes. That's where this is all heading. Yeah. Like, Caesar gets put in his place by when the time of dogs arises.
Yeah, I'd probably watch that.
All right,
But that's it.
We'll see you guys next week.
Yep, see it.